Bonjour, shalom, and hello. Welcome to the 8th episode of our second season of Calling an Audible, a podcast focusing on national, regional, and local news sports stories with our own special twist. My name is Zach Greenberg, along with my co-host Greg Johnson. We will be talking about NFL free agency, some more NCAA scandals, what else is new, and some local news, and as always, we'll wrap it up with our rivalry segment and our wacky sports update. Greg, you found some breaking news on another NCAA scandal, and this seems to be a theme with the NCAA because they have a scandal at least once a year coming out.
I did, yeah. So there's a Bleacher Report article that actually just came out. I think this was all conducted by the FBI. They recently just released this. And an article by Mike Chiari on Bleacher Report states over 40 people, including some college coaches, were indicted Tuesday for allegedly getting students admitted to elite universities as recruited athletes regardless of their athletic ability and helping potential students cheat on their college exams. Some of the colleges listed were Georgetown, Stanford, UCLA, USC, Wake Forest, Yale, and there's a bunch more, obviously. And so essentially what this is the indictment states a third party took the ACT and SAT college entrance exams in place of students. The documents also allege that some defendants created fake athletic profiles for students to make them appear to be successful athletes and get them into college. Some of the things they would do were hire proctors to take the test or correct the answers for that student, and the bribes range from a few $1,000s to up to $6 million. That's
a lot of money.
There is. Per Aaron Katersky and Bill Hutchinson of ABC News, actresses Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin were among those who have been charged. They were indicted and alleged to have paid up to $6 million in bribes to get their children into colleges.
That's crazy.
I mean, I didn't think college was that important to pay $6 million on top of the tuition already. But I guess if they can pay $6 million, tuition must not be anything.
Change, yeah.
But just thinking about that, as part of the indictment, Laughlin is alleged to have paid $500,000 in bribes to have her two daughters designated as recruits to the USC crew team, despite the fact that they do not participate in crew.
So basically, they were not even going to be student athletes.
No, they paid coaches to make a sport profile for them. And
that's so ridiculous.
Then they just got into college that way because I guess, I'm assuming athletes have some sort of preference to college entrance.
I'm sure.
I would assume so, especially top Division I school like that, especially if for whatever reason. But
right.
Just thinking about that, why would... it just baffles me. You want your kid to get in college that bad, you're going to pay a ridiculous amount of money just to see that happen?
What I would do as a parent is probably put money into making it so they can get those test scores on their own and get into college on their own, rather than paying somebody $6 million to proctor an exam. That seems a little far-fetched and crazy to me, but people have that money, so...
like you said.
And for coaches to want to be mixed up in this when they haven't, Division I college coaches have enough money to begin with. Why would they want to be mixed up in this? But I guess if you're waving $6 million in my face, I might do the same thing. So
that is a lot of money, and you don't screw around when you're offered $6 million to get two random kids into college. I mean, I guess I understand the point, but there is no morality behind that. I mean, if the kid doesn't deserve to get into that college, that's because they don't deserve to get into college.
Yeah, not smart enough.
Yeah, they're not smart enough. They obviously didn't try. And honestly, I think it's terrible that they're going to try and get on their name alone if they have no merit to their name. So if their test scores weren't good enough, take the test again, study for it. Do what the rest of every other American kid that wants to get into college did. They worked hard. I don't think you should have to have your mommy and daddy pay $6 million.
Money's a loophole for people, though.
It is.
Yeah.
I guess in this case, instead of buying happiness, I bought them college.
College is happiness, at least for me.
I mean, yeah, I've enjoyed my time at Crookston, especially with you.
Yeah.
I hope you'd say the same.
I would definitely say the same. I wouldn't be doing a podcast with you if I didn't feel that way. Even though it's a good podcast, but
I like it.
yeah, we have a good time over here. But the NFL, big news over the last couple days, NFL free agency has started. And the biggest news before we get into free agency was the Steelers have finally gotten rid of their Antonio Brown problem. But the problem they have now is they got absolutely nothing in return for one of the best receivers in the NFL.
What, a third and fifth
They
round
got a
draft
third
pick?
and a fifth round pick. And there was a funny piece I saw on Twitter that they attempted to try the trade in Madden, and where the Raiders proposed the trade to the Steelers, and then to the computer, and then the trade was of course declined, and the little memo at the top was just like, "You've completely insulted us with this offer." And to me, like in real life, it's just like that's just so insulting that, I mean, it's not insulting because obviously they agreed to it, but Antonio Brown is worth far more than a third and fifth round pick. But for them to get rid of that cancer that they've been dealing with for the last year, 3 and 5 might be a good deal for them because they weren't going to. It's tough to trade a guy like that.
I'm surprised they didn't have to give up one of their plethora of first round picks this year.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that wasn't included in the deal. But I guess, yeah, when you're selling a superstar like that who's been forcing his way out that entire year,
yeah,
I guess it makes sense that because he wasn't exactly happy with the situation. And I'm going to directly state this, that the Steelers wasted a perfect trio of talent.
Oh, yeah.
With Le'Veon Bell, Ben Roethlisberger, and Antonio Brown.
There's just got to be a lot of culture issues in Pittsburgh if they couldn't keep those guys happy. Usually it's pretty easy to keep your best players happy, but
It almost makes you wonder, what do you think happened?
probably a culture problem. I mean, to me, like at first with the whole Le'Veon thing, like I understood with the holdout and stuff like that, like they should have just paid the man, and they're gonna be seeing that they're gonna regret it for a long time to come.
Right.
But like, and then when the stuff with Antonio Brown started, like it just became pretty clear to me that there's something going on, like within that locker room, within that building, that is steering people away. So,
as a former football player, I'm sure you definitely understand any aspect of culture in a locker room such as that. But
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, in other news, too, Nick Foles has officially signed his ginormous contract with the Jaguars. 4 years, $88 million, and I'm pretty sure probably about half of that's going to be guaranteed.
I think they definitely over 50 is guaranteed, and I think they overpaid for Nick Foles. I really like Nick Foles, but the bottom line is, in his career, he has only shown success in Philadelphia.
Yep.
And
that's a huge gamble by Jacksonville.
And coming in relief for Carson Wentz. And he had a little bit of there was one season where he was with Philadelphia. I think it was right after the Michael Vick years, where he had like 31 touchdowns and 2 interceptions.
Ironically enough, that was
numbers.
Under the Chip Kelly system, too.
Right, but also in Philadelphia. And we say it all the time when we talk about Nick Foles, is that was a good fit from there. But, Jacksonville has a good defense still, and they have Leonard Fournette, so there's a chance this could pay off for them. But, they're in a tough division with the Colts and the Texans, and even the Titans are okay. So we'll see what happens with Jacksonville next year, but...
like you said, I agree with the fact that he's a very expensive purchase. I don't think he's going to amount to what they expect. He's not going to be who he was in Philadelphia. But with that being said, he's going to do a lot better than Bortles, because that's not tough to beat, my opinion.
Right.
And my feelings about Bortles has been displayed evidently. But I don't know. I just think they paid probably about obviously too much, but I would say they paid $22 million too much. I mean, coming from, as a Vikings fan, with the Kirk Cousins situation.
Right. Like that deal is just a little bit. Well, Kirk Cousins was $384.
Something like that. Yeah, that's about right.
So I guess Kirk's was about $20 million more, but
even at that,
I'm not very good at math though, so if that's wrong.
Well, we didn't come to college for math per se.
That's why we're doing a podcast.
Exactly.
But of the free agents, notable free agents that still haven't been signed, you have Ndamukong Suh, who has been a controversial player throughout his career, and he still hasn't been signed. You have Earl Thomas, who had that whole holdout situation last year. He came back, and then he tore his Achilles, so that was a whole situation.
Doesn't he want to go to Dallas, though?
Yeah, or he said that he wants to go to Dallas, but Dallas hasn't capitalized on that yet. So
they need to jump on that.
They definitely need to jump on that. But, Dallas had a good team last year, so they might be content with where they're at.
Exactly. Justin Houston's still available.
He's old, though.
Yeah, but I heard the Jets are going to go after him, being they missed out on the Anthony Barr sweepstakes. But that'll come later for you viewers at home. We'll talk about that.
Vikings fans would be interested to know that Teddy Bridgewater re-signed with the Saints.
And I think Sean Payton said that, if I read it correctly, once Drew Brees retires, he's next in line, which isn't a bad thing to do. He's a good quarterback, but they're gonna have to change to it.
You're gonna lose Drew Brees, and then you're gonna be going into with a 30-year-old very damaged Teddy Bridgewater.
They're gonna have to change to.
That's not a very good succession right there.
Their offense is gonna have to go to run game after that.
I mean, and they can. I think that Teddy could do a lot with Alvin Kamara, but. Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, or Drew Brees versus Teddy Bridgewater is very different.
Yeah, Golden Tate's still available, and he said he would be more than happy to play with Tom Brady, which then again, what receiver wouldn't be?
C.J. Mosley from the Ravens signed with the New York Jets, $85 million deal. Landon Collins, who we talked about last week, wasn't franchise tag. He ended up signing within the division to the Washington Redskins for $84 million.
Definitely overpaid on that one.
Yeah. I mean, he's a good safety, but,
Hey, look at this. Clinton Dix is a current free agent.
He is. Maybe the Packers will go and get him. But
wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah,
I could see that happen. Clay Matthews, he's still available.
We're about to. We just signed Adrian Amos from Chicago to play safety, so we'll talk a bit more about that during our rivalry segment. But we'll move on to talk about some state news, and this is with NFL free agency going on right now. There's a lot of stuff going on with the Vikings. The biggest situation was Anthony Barr this morning had signed with the New York Jets, but then over the last couple of hours he said sorry New York and stayed in Minnesota. So how do you feel about that little transaction right there?
We just wasted a bunch of cap space on a declining linebacker. I think he was I don't know, he's a good linebacker, but I believe he was part of calling the defense this past season, if I remember right, and we saw what happened from 2017 to 2018.
Yeah, big drop in numbers.
I mean, they went from the best defense to the fourth best. I mean, it's not a significant drop because, teams always get better and they improve.
But him personally also saw a pretty big drop in numbers. He had 20 less tackles from over that between 27 and 18. Like, he was steadily getting roughly 70 tackles every year prior to this, but then last year he dropped down to the 50s. So, it could be at the beginning of a decline, but I know you guys will always love him for hurting my beloved Aaron. So
he had it coming. I mean, when you don't slide like that, and then he's a fragile person.
It was a dirty player.
It was
dirty player, dirty play. But it's okay. That's why we have to see all these stupid penalties called now in the NFL.
Did you notice
all these roughing the passer?
Did you notice they stopped calling those more and more as the season progressed?
Well, because it was pissing a lot of fans off because it slows down the game and it's ruining drives.
You can't even land on top of quarterback anymore.
Right, and put your weight on it.
So I'm glad they finally stopped calling that. That was a bunch of nonsense, but it did help the Vikings out a couple games during the season. But ultimately, it didn't really help them out at all because they finished one game above 500 with a tie.
What else happened with the,
There's been talks about Kyle Rudolph possibly restructuring his contract and
to being less, I'm assuming.
Probably move the money around so that way there's more cap space this year. But the Vikings are already hard pressed the way it is. I don't see what more they could do. And I don't know. He's probably one of the better receiving red zone tight ends there are in the league next to Rob Gronkowski, who still hasn't quite decided on his future. But Rudolph's a good leader on the team. He's been around. He's been in the system. He people look up to him, but he needs to restructure it a little bit, and I think there's a lot of players on the team that need to restructure their deals because it's just, I don't know, it's just not going too well.
Players and agents in particular aren't very they're not as willing usually to restructure contracts because usually when contract restructuring happens, it's to the benefit of the team rather than the player. But some guys and Thielen's contract got restructured, didn't it?
It might have.
It's going to be.
If it hasn't been, it'll probably soon be. But also,
it's going to have to be with the numbers he's put up, and that'll be restructured in his favor.
I think so, unless he signs a extension that benefits him.
That's what they'll probably end up doing with him. They'll probably just sign him to an extension.
Sheldon Richardson officially moved on to the Browns. We knew he was going to be a 1-year rental the way it was.
Yeah.
He signed a prove-it deal, and he wanted a multi-year deal. And when the Vikings re-signed Shamar Stevens, that was basically saying Richardson's on his way out.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a good defensive lineman. He had a good season. He wasn't outstanding, but he still did his job.
Yeah, he did his job, and with a lot of defensive linemen, I remember when I used to play football, when I used to play defensive line when I played football, I wasn't an outstanding defensive end, but I would go in there and I would do my job and not screw up, and that sometimes it goes a long way when you have other playmakers on your defense.
Exactly.
And that those are important guys to have. But you guys didn't re-sign Sendejo yet, and
nope.
He's a fan favorite in Minnesota too.
Just because he's a hard hitter.
Yeah.
But he's very prone to pass interference penalties. He hits above the shoulder, so he gets a lot of.
He's a poor man's Harrison Smith.
For lack of a better term, yeah, he's basically the penalty-prone Harrison Smith. He's not as good. In fact, he didn't really start much at all this past season with injuries and obviously penalty issues, but the Vikings actually have good depth in their safeties. I'm not going to lie. They have the thing Mike Zimmer has done very well is make the defense deep. Now he just needs to figure out how to do that with the offensive line, which definitely didn't take a step forward as they cut Mike Remmers, which actually is probably a good choice because he's overpaid for his position. He's not that good.
Yeah, you guys need to go after offensive linemen in the draft, but
I would not be mad if their first 4 picks are offensive linemen.
They'll probably go defense, though, because the Vikings always go defense.
All
in
the mock
draft.
drafts I've been reading were either Vikings pick a linebacker or a defensive back, possibly a safety.
Yeah.
We're not going to try our luck in the wide receiver the sweepstakes.
You guys are all right at receiver right now, I think, with
Diggs and Thielen.
And then you have Rudolph, a receiving tight end. I wouldn't. You guys don't really need to look for. I mean, as long as you can keep Thielen and Diggs, I don't know if you're going to be able to keep both of them.
They will.
Hopefully they can.
Thielen doesn't want to leave
for your sake.
Diggs is locked up for a while. I just hope they get rid of him.
But you guys did lose Latavius Murray, and he was. I would say he was better than Dalvin Cook in your backfield last year.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Latavius Murray, he was a good third down back. I mean, there's a couple times where he had some good runs up the middle, and he got the first down. He had a lot of yards per carry, actually, from whenever I watched any of the games. But he restructured his deal last year for the benefit of the team, and there's no way he's going to do it again. And him leaving's not surprising. But the thing that actually makes me the most mad is the fact he went to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And that just to me, that's just I'm just going to go play for the enemy.
Yeah.
Which isn't the Packers for once.
Well, you guys have a lot more to worry about next season, I think. But
oh, please.
I don't see a conference championship anywhere in the picture for you guys. But
yeah.
But the Packers, on the other hand, will be there.
Oh,
guaranteed.
Okay.
Guaranteed. But Latavius Murray had 578 yards last season. Cook had 615, but Murray had 6 touchdowns and Cook had 2. So the majority of your red zone scoring came from Latavius Murray. So you guys are going to have to find a replacement
our
there.
Lack of red zone scoring.
You know what you guys could do is go to New Orleans and say, "Hey, Mark Ingram."
That would be something.
That would be great for you guys. Mark Ingram would be a top-tier running back for you guys for sure. I don't know. I think I want the Packers to go after Ingram too, but
I don't know.
Packers also, they have running backs, but they're not, big-name running backs. They're guys that were serviceable and showed flashes last year, but, lots of running backs do that, and then they're nothing. So, I'm referring to Alex Jones and Jamal Williams when I'm talking about that.
You know what I think, Zach?
What?
And you're probably going to laugh at me for this, but I think the Vikings need to have a reunion with Adrian Peterson.
But I wouldn't be opposed to that for you guys, but I think that he's a little old.
Yeah, but Adrian all day, Peterson, also known
maybe
as
sign him to a one year like swan song contract.
Yeah.
But like his career, like he did have a good season in Washington last year. But
the man's also known as Purple Jesus.
He has shown signs of slowing down, and that's what happens with any running back once they turn 30.
Yeah, his stats this past year, he ran for 1,042 yards.
That's crazy. And how old is he? 31 now?
He is, he's probably around 31, yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely not a young buck like he once was, but he did really good. He played in 16 games, 251 rushes. He had 7 touchdowns, which obviously isn't as much as he used to, but he still had a 90-yard touchdown run last year, and he averaged 4.2 yards per carry, which compared to our Vikings running backs is a huge upgrade. So, I wouldn't mind seeing AP back in purple. I think he would come on a friendly deal because I believe there is mutual interest between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's far-fetched.
No, it's not.
I think it'd be something I'd like to see. I just hope you figured out how not to fumble.
Well, I'll tell you who won't be in your backfield next year, and that's Rock Thomas.
Yeah, he might be in prison for a long time.
No, he'll get out pretty fast, especially in Minnesota. They're pretty lax on that stuff.
But yeah, that's whatever. That's some other thing we can talk about. So.
But we'll move on to some local news. We actually have quite a bit of UMC sports to discuss, and it's not really like basketball season's done. Baseball and softball have slowly been and surely been getting underway so far. The men's and women's golf team will both play at the Winona State Invitational in Las Vegas, not at Winona State, but that's actually as we speak. No updates on that as of yet, but tennis this evening they'll be against Rockhurst in Orlando.
Okay.
Tomorrow the equestrian team they'll be in the IHSA semifinals, so good luck to them doing that. Putting on for the school. On Sunday, the softball team will be playing Caldwell University at 10:15 a.m. and then St. Michael's College at 12:30 p.m. And those games will be streamed if you're interested in watching those online. And then also on Sunday, baseball will be against Wayne State, but that game will not be streamed. So a lot of UMC sports to look out for over this week and into spring break week. And we'll see how our teams do, and we'll discuss it a little more once we get back from spring break.
Yeah. I'm glad to see the sports are actually having a slight turnaround. I know I've mentioned this before, but they're slowly and surely improving. And eventually...
Some programs.
Some programs, yes. Other programs, not so much. But in Crookston, that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at athletics programs at UMC so far is like if you're looking at like a stock market chart, you see like a downtrend, and then every now and then you'll see like
big spike,
a little bit of a spike up, and then it'll just slowly continue trending downward. And like you saw that with the baseball team, like they had a great season, and then last
2 years ago they were really good,
and then last season dropped
downtrend. But this year it looks like they're probably going to be even keel. They're straightening out
a little bit of consolidation,
a little bit, but you can't always. It's like the Vikings 2 years ago; they're good. Yeah. Last year, they're a joke.
Yeah,
that's how sports roll.
I mean,
sometimes.
the Packers are always on an uptrend, but then they'll have like a big drop every now and then they'll just keep going up. The 7 and 9 seasons in the past 2 years, we're like on a little bit of a middle ground right now, but we're about to shoot up after these free agent signings, and that's what we're about to talk about in our rivalry segment for today.
The funniest thing about you, Zach Greenberg, is you're not even from Green Bay, but you're what I expect of a Packer fan.
Okay, fair enough, but like growing up in Canada, we don't have an NFL team. I have to choose somebody.
I'm not dogging you on that, but I'm just saying you're so high and mighty about the Packers.
Because we're the best, when we know we're the best.
You won a Super Bowl in, 2010?
Yeah. When was the last time you guys won one?
Well, we went to 4 of them, but they didn't turn out too well. And those were in our glory days of the Purple People Eaters.
Those were some glory days for you guys, but...
They got hosed. That's all I'm going to say is they had it in their hands, and then they just...
You added subpar to our...
Yeah. I thought you were going to catch that, but
I just caught it right now.
Viewers at home in our script, Zach finally saw that he had Packers make a splash in free agency, but I added the word Packers make a subpar splash.
Which is completely false because...
It absolutely is true.
Which I will get into right now when I say, like, the Packers past administration, not about free agencies. Like, some of their biggest free agent signings were Reggie White and Charles Woodson, and that's about it. But now, with our new GM, Brian Gutekunst...
Never heard of the dude.
Excuse me if I'm saying your name wrong, Mr. Brian, but you're killing it in Green Bay. We've already 4 free agent signings today.
You're spending all that money. What are you doing?
2 outside linebackers, Preston and Zadarius Smith. Preston Smith out of Washington, and he kills it on my Madden Overdrive team, so I love Preston Smith. So he's had 24.5 sacks over the last 4 years, so we're excited about getting him in. And
I think Zadarius Smith was the leading sack leader in Baltimore last year.
Yep, and they're both going to be good because, you know, Clay Matthews, I love you. You've been my favorite player ever since Brett Favre left Green Bay, but you're not getting re-signed, and we need new pass rushers, and Preston and Zadarius Smith are going to come in and kill it for us and revamp our defense, which has been much needed for the last 15 years.
So you signed 3 guys.
4.
So you signed 4 guys, excuse me. 4 guys I have never heard of before.
Oh, you've got to have heard of Adrian Amos of Chicago. He started 57 of 60 games in his career, and he was a 5th-round pick.
The commentators might have mentioned his name once or twice.
Yeah. We upgraded in our secondary, we upgraded in our pass rush, and we upgraded at O-line and Billy Turner. You know, he's had some experience, hasn't, you know, started full seasons, but he's athletic and he fits our scheme perfectly with Matt LaFleur. So we're excited about all these guys. And, you know, the Bears might still be a little bit better than us for next year. You know, Khalil Mack's a game changer every week, but I think we're that second team in the NFC North next year, and we're for sure cracking a wild card spot, and you're going to make a run in the playoffs because that's what Aaron Rodgers does.
Oh, Zach, the fact you think the Packers have a bright future just because they signed 4 guys that actually kind of helped their team, but to what extent?
To not a 6-10 Vikings extent.
You know, I'm not going to lie, it does scare me that the Packers are opening their wallet to people and not trying to improve in the draft like they
Big time.
Like they have been for the past 100 years.
Keep in mind, we have 2 first-round picks this year. We got 2. We have 12 and 30.
Last year, didn't they trade out of the first round?
They did, but we have pick 12 and pick 30 this year. I'm hoping right now that they'll trade up to pick number 3 and try and get Quinnen Williams. He's a offensive lineman.
The Oreo cookie guy?
Yep, the Oreo cookie guy, because he is crazy and he's going to destroy people in his career. So
Minnesota, get him first.
Where's your pick this year?
Slightly better, slightly behind the Packers.
Yeah,
because they were better than them.
Well, they'll be in between because the Packers have 12 and 30.
I think they're 17, 18, something like that. But that's because they were better than the Packers, so they have a worse draft pick.
Well, it happens once every decade or so.
Every decade. So
congrats.
The fact the Vikings have won the NFC North for the past 6 years.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to get into that.
No, we don't need to talk about that. We can talk about our 4 Super Bowl rings and then leave it at that.
Winning the very first Super Bowl doesn't count.
And the second.
And the second Super Bowl does not count.
Why not?
They played 3 other teams the entire season. It's not that hard to beat 3 other teams.
A dub is a dub.
You're right, a dub is a dub.
And here at this school, we don't come by them very often, so a dub is a dub.
Let's be supportive of our
We are supportive. We love our UMC athletics. Always retweeting their stuff.
Always. We're huge supporters, but, sometimes you got to... You're only funny if you laugh at yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And as former athletes, we tend to prod ourselves a little bit more than most.
And those people are all of our friends too, so that's why we poke fun of them.
Yeah, they understand. They don't think it's too bad, but
yeah. We'll wrap it up real quick with some wacky sports updates. Conor McGregor getting in some trouble once again. Gets arrested for robbery because he knocked a phone out of a fan's hand and then breaks it and then took it with him.
Yep.
So
instead of throwing a bike rack at a bus, he decided to break a phone and confiscate it, all because he didn't like the fan taking a picture of him.
And it's similar news out of this. You heard about what happened in New York last night with the Knicks?
No, I did not.
A fan, the owner was walking back through the tunnel into the locker room area, and a fan went right up to the railing. He yells, "Sell the team!" And then the owner stops and looks at him. He's just like, "What did you say?" He said, "I said sell the team." And then the owner's just like, "That's a very rude thing to say." And then they were like respectfully going at it for like a minute or so. And then the owner decided to kick him out of the arena and ban him for life. So the New York Knicks owner banned this fan for life from Madison Square Garden. I don't know if he can do that. There's definitely going to be some legal action taking place, but you know, because like the Rangers play in Madison Square Garden, a bunch of players play or teams play in Madison Square Garden. But I mean, if he is the owner of the New York Knicks, he can. I guess he's within his rights to ban him from Knicks games in the future.
The owner of the Madison Square Garden, or the owner of Madison Square Garden, is the Madison Square Garden Company.
Right.
And James Dolan, their team owner, is Charles Oakley says team owner James Dolan is a bully for threatening to ban fans from Madison Square Garden.
Well, right, because Charles Oakley has also been banned from Madison Square Garden.
I mean, so basically, at the end of the day, James Dolan's an overgrown child that owns a very crappy basketball team in one of the best markets for a basketball team.
Maybe he should take that fan's advice and sell the team.
Hey, James Dolan, maybe he's not wrong. Did you ever think about that? What have the Knicks done in the past 10 years?
20
years, exactly. You were last good when you had Patrick Ewing on your team?
That was a while ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago. You had Carmelo Anthony and
couldn't make it work.
You didn't do anything with him.
And Phil Jackson as coach.
And then, running around the triangle offense. Well, he's a GM, though, wasn't he?
He was a coach there for a while.
Yeah, he's also a coach there, but he also became a GM.
Yeah.
He's the one that drafted Kristaps and Frank Entacolina.
And where are they now?
Well, Kristaps is in Dallas, and Frank Entacolina was probably a poor choice.
Yeah.
But you know what? Obviously, draft picks don't work out, and Phil Jackson hit gold on Kristaps, but you know, I don't know. Their last championship was in 1973. So
yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, and now they think they're going to get Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in free agency.
They're too bougie for New York. They're not going to be able to handle the pressure and playing in a city like New York, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, well, Kyrie handled it okay in Boston, but New York's a little bit of a different animal than Boston.
They're crazy about basketball there.
Yeah.
And in a not good way. But, you know, I'm not going to hate on teams and loving their fans. But to wrap it up, some local Twins news out of spring training. Ahiri Adrianza got caught with the hidden ball trick from the Detroit Tigers faithful Miguel Cabrera. Every once in a blue moon, you kind of see the hidden ball trick actually get pulled off. And it happened. And
it happened to the Twins.
And it happened to the Twins. Yet another Minnesota sports team making news and all the wrong reasons.
It's okay. Maybe next century you guys will turn it around and you guys will be like
make it to the
Patriots or
ALC
something and have like all of your teams just be amazing. Next century though. We'll be dead. But
yeah, we'll be long gone, buried in the.
But our podcast episodes will still be alive.
Yep.
We'll still be alive on all of our various avenues to show you guys what we can do.
So you know, I think the Minnesota sports teams will one day be good. It's just a matter of how many years from now until then.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Maybe the Twins will actually be surprisingly good and be a dark horse this year with Rocco Baldelli as their new manager. But I wasn't a huge fan of the hiring. I don't know much about him, other than the fact that he used to play for the Red Sox. I think he won a World Series with them. And he is also a first base coach for the Rays last year, who were surprisingly actually a good team considering the fact they traded away a lot of people.
I liked you guys back in the Gardenhire days. He was my favorite manager.
One of the cool things the Twins actually did this spring training was Ron Gardenhire, who's currently the manager for the Detroit Tigers. His son Toby Gardenhire is the manager for the Fort Myer Miracle.
Who are they affiliated
They're
with?
they're the high A for the Minnesota Twins.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he actually manages them, and on top of that, he got to give the lineup card to the umpire before the game, and his dad was on the other side of home plate. So that was actually kind of a cool special moment that the Twins did.
Yeah, definitely pretty cool.
They don't play the Tigers a lot in Hammond Stadium
Yeah.
in Florida because they're 100 miles apart.
Right.
The Tigers and the Twins are. So it's actually a really cool thing for them to do that. And I respect the Twins and Tigers for that nice father-son bonding time on the opposite sides of home plate.
Not so much of a wacky sports update, but
It's actually a nice, cool family moment. So.
yeah.
Wrap it up here. Thank you for listening to our 8th episode of Season 2. Just a reminder, Zach and I are on spring break next week. So there will be
Daytona.
So there will not be an episode until the week of the 25th. And Zach, I am beyond jealous that you're going to go to Florida for spring break.
Well, I wouldn't be too jealous because I just looked at the weather today and it's supposed to rain all 4 days we're there. So,
Oh,
but it's still Florida, so we can't complain.
rain, 17 feet of snow.
Yeah,
Rain,
we'll take the
17
rain.
feet of
We'll
snow.
take the rain.
Yeah, enjoy the possible sunshine and warm weather. And as always, you can listen to us on Spotify, Google Play, and YouTube. And once I figure out the issues currently going on with iTunes, we'll be able to get our podcast up on iTunes as well. So give us a follow on Twitter at CallAudiblePod. And for Zach Greenberg, I'm Greg Johnson, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye now.
Calling an Audible is made possible through the assistance of the University of Minnesota Crookston Media Services Department and executive producer James Pagachnik. The views expressed on Calling an Audible are not necessarily the views of the University of Minnesota Crookston or its affiliates.